Hey folks, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can build a fast, minimal WordPress blog that gets all 100s on the Google PageSpeed test. Now, I know WordPress has a reputation for being slow and bloated, and that can be the case, especially if you have way too many plugins or a theme that's slow. But I also want to show you that it doesn't have to be the case. We're going to build this blog from scratch by creating our own custom theme and only using 2 plugins to get the theme working. The blog has a homepage with this top intro content, social media links, and recent posts. Then there's an articles page where you can see all the blog posts, and of course we have the blog post page itself. So I'm going to show you my whole process, step by step, where we start by setting up a local WordPress environment and building the blog there. Then after we build the blog, we'll be deploying it to our web host on SiteGround to put it up on the internet. SiteGround is a sponsor of this video, and I've used them to host my own website for the past 7 years and counting. I do genuinely like them for their fast and secure hosting. You know, I never have to worry that my site is going to go down, and they also handle the WordPress and server management for me. You know, one of my least favorite parts of using WordPress is having to remember to update WordPress core and the plugins every time. So the fact that SiteGround handles all of this for me is just a huge time saver, and I really love that. So if you want to check out SiteGround, I do have them linked down below, and you'll be able to get over 80% off your first year of hosting. All right, let's get into the video. All right, so let's start by setting up our website at siteground.com, and we're going to click the Start Now button, and then you can choose the plan that you want. So I recommend the Grow Big plan, just because you can have multiple websites on one account, which can be really handy if you want to have multiple projects. Also, if you sign up with SiteGround, you're going to get over 80% off your first year, so this will give you plenty of time to decide which features you want from the different tiers. Next, you can either get 1 year of a free domain name, or if you're not ready yet, you can use a dummy domain by selecting Existing Domain, typing in whatever.com, selecting I'll register later, and then filling out your account as well as your payment information. All right, so once you've set up your account, you should see your SiteGround dashboard, which should look something like this. And you can create a new website by going to the Websites tab up here, and then clicking the New Website button. And then on your new website, you can choose the location where your website's data is going to be stored. And if you have multiple websites under one account, you actually have the ability to choose a different data center location for each individual website, which I think is pretty cool. And it's actually a feature that is not available on a lot of hosts, but it comes for free with all SiteGround plans. So this will help ensure that each website is going to load quickly because you can choose the location close to where the website visitors are coming from. Next, I'm going to just select temporary domain, then click continue. And then under start new website, I'm going to select that. And I want to select WordPress. And here you'll also want to put in the email address and password that you want to use for your WordPress login. Click continue. And then I'm going to say no thank you. And click finish. So this might take a minute or two to create the new website, but once that's done, we can go to the Site Tools to see the dashboard for the website that we just created. So SiteGround has their own custom in-house Site Tools panel, which in my opinion has better UI than the regular cPanel that you might see on a lot of other web hosts. And what's cool is that you can manage everything that you need for your WordPress site right here. So the features that I kind of like are the staging environment, which you can use to show site changes to your client or your team before pushing them to production. And also with auto update, you can control how SiteGround is going to update your WordPress core and even your plugins. And this is one of my favorite features because it's just super convenient and you don't need to think about doing it yourself. So we're going to be coming back to the Site Tools when we deploy our local site to this production environment. So now let's start building our blog locally. All right, so we're going to start by getting our local WordPress environment set up. And local development just makes things a lot quicker to see the actual changes reflected on the local site when you're doing development. So highly recommend trying to do local development when you're working with WordPress especially. And the best way that I found to do this is to use local WP. This is a free tool that basically sets up your local WordPress environment with pretty much one click. So you don't have to, set up your MySQL database and your WordPress install yourself. So this way just makes it a lot less painless when you're trying to set up your local environment. So the website is at localwp.com, and you can download, whichever platform you need. And again, it is free, which is pretty nice. So once you have local downloaded and you've installed it, when you run local, you should see something like this. And if you don't have any sites yet, it's going to tell you that you need to create a site. So let's create a new site. And what I'm going to do is just create a new site, spin up a new WordPress or headless WordPress site. And then there's a little continue button here. And then we need to give our site a name. So I'm going to say Coder Blog. And then I'm just going to use the preferred options for the environment. If you want different ones, you can customize different PHP versions and different web servers and databases. But again, this is probably easiest unless you specifically need something else. So we'll continue there. And now here is where we're going to type in the WordPress username and password that we want to use to log into WordPress locally. So set those up. And then we're going to add our site. So it might take a little bit to create our new WordPress site. All right, and once it's done, we should be able to see it here, and it is automatically running. So you can stop or start the site up there if you want. And this is helpful because you can open the site folder if you click here, site shell if you want to go to the command line, and then you can open this in VS Code. So let's just start off by going to our WordPress admin. And we want to log in. And you don't need to worry about the sort of insecure warnings because you are working locally. So it doesn't need to, get loaded over HTTPS because we are not actually on the internet. All right, so here is our WordPress blog. And again, I just love how convenient local WP makes everything. So if we want, we can visit our site and just check out what we have to start off with. So it's pretty blank. It has probably the default, I think, 2025 theme. And then I'm just gonna maybe uncheck some of these things here just to keep it cleaner. And we're going to start by adding some plugins to our WordPress. So the two plugins that we're going to be using are the classic theme, the classic editor. And this is going to basically let you use the old classic editor in WordPress as opposed to the newer Gutenberg editor. And I do personally prefer the classic editor. So we're going to search for classic editor. Oops. Editor, and this is the one we want. It is made by WordPress.org. So we'll install it and then activate it. Now the other plugin that we're going to be using is Advanced Custom Fields, and this is going to enable us to create custom fields in our WordPress editor. So you have more than just the default sort of post editor WYSIWYG. I love this plugin a lot. It just gives you a lot of control over your WordPress site. And unfortunately, you cannot install it from the WordPress directory like we did with the Classic Editor plugin, but you have to download it from the website and then install it on your WordPress. So let's download this and click download. All right, so we have our zip file open there. So now what we want to do is we want to go back to WordPress, and in the add plugins screen, we're going to say upload plugin up here. So we can upload the zip file that we just downloaded. So here it is, advancedcustomfields.zip. So we're going to select that and then click install now. All right, and then we're going to activate our plugin. So these are the two plugins that we're going to be using. Now, the next thing we're going to install is a starter theme that I like using. And this is going to be called Blank Slate. So we'll search for Blank Slate. You can see here in the preview, it looks very bare bones. And that's basically the reason that I like it. It doesn't have extra bloat. And it's designed for people who want to create their own custom theme, which we are going to be doing. So it's just a really good starter theme. So I'm going to install Blank Slate. It's installed. Let's activate it. And now let's check out our site again. So I'm going to reload. So this is what Blank Slate looks like when we first start. It is very bare bones, as you can see. So these are the only things that we're going to be installing on WordPress. So next up, let's go into VS Code and we're going to check out our WordPress files. All right, so the easiest way to get to your files in VS Code is to go through local. So in local, as we kind of mentioned before, if you click the site folder, it's going to open up the actual file explorer location where your WordPress files are located. What we want to do is we want to open up VS Code to the Coder blog folder. So let's click that. And then here we'll say, yes, I trust the authors to trust these files. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so here is our WordPress root, basically. So to get to our themes, we want to go to the WP content folder, themes, and we can see here we have the Blank Slate theme. Now we want to turn this into our Coder blog theme. So what I'm going to do is right click or press F2 and rename it. And I'm going to type in Coder blog. And that's what we want our theme to be called. You can call your theme something different. Just make sure you're consistent in the naming for this next step. So I'm going to right click the folder and I basically want to replace all mentions of Blank Slate with the new theme name Coder blog. So I'm going to right click the folder, find in folder, and we're going to look for Blank Slate. Blank Slate, sorry, it's one word. So Blank Slate, one word. And we want to replace it with Coder blog. So you can see a bunch of the PHP files have the mentions of Blank Slate. So we're literally going to replace all of them with Coder blog. So we'll click here to replace all. It's going to ask if you want to replace all occurrences. We'll say yes, replace. So now we've replaced all the occurrences. And now in our folder, these are the PHP files that we can work with for our theme. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to first create our home page. This will be the first page that we're going to work on our site. And to do that, we're going to go back to WordPress in our WordPress admin, and let's go to pages, and I'm going to add a page. And we're going to create this and call it homepage. So this will make sure that the permalink slug for this page is homepage, which is what we want. And we'll just add some text here. This is the custom Coder blog homepage. And let's publish that. So now we've created our homepage. So next we want to go back to our themes. So let's go to Appearance and Themes. And if you remember, we had changed the name of Blank Slate to Coder blog. So because of that, it actually reverted to the 2025 theme because we kind of broke stuff. So we want to just make sure we have the Coder blog theme activated. And I'll just kind of check that, make sure, yeah, so it looks pretty good now. So next up, we want to set that new homepage that we just created to be the homepage when you go to the Coder blog domain name. So we can do that in Appearance, Customize, and under Homepage Settings here, we're going to say your homepage displays, and we want to select a static page. And then under Homepage, we'll select Homepage. So then we can click Publish. Okay, so that looks all set. So we have created our custom homepage in WordPress. Now we're going to go back to our files and we're going to create a custom PHP file that we can use to, add all the code and the styles to our custom homepage. All right, so we are back in VS Code in our Coder blog theme files. You can see we have a lot of PHP files here. So what we want to do next is we created that homepage in WordPress. Now we're going to create a custom PHP template to load when we load that homepage. And the way that we can do that is if we look for the page.php file here, this is going to load anytime WordPress loads a page. So we want to link this just to that custom homepage we created. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in the same location, and we want to rename this name to page dash, and then the slug of the page that we want to load with this PHP template. So the name of the page was homepage. So we're going to call this page dash homepage. And we can make sure this is actually working because I'm just going to add some hard-coded stuff that we can check. Here is our, whatever the title is. So let's go back to our blog and reload this. So now you can see here, it says here is our homepage. So just kind of checking to make sure the functionality works that we just set up, which is the case. So in this PHP file, as you can see, there is a lot of code and we actually don't want all of it. So I'm just going to clean up some of the files here. But let me kind of show you how WordPress sort of loads the files. So every page on WordPress is going to first load the header PHP file. So you can see here, this has a lot of HTML header tags. And actually, before we get too far into this, I want to show you a VS Code extension that is really helpful when working with WordPress files, because you can see things kind of look like a mess. And the default, if you're using Prettier, it's actually not going to do very much for these WordPress PHP files, just because WordPress PHP files are this mix of like HTML and PHP code. So what you want to do is go to the extensions menu, and you want to install an extension called PHP IntelliFence, which is this one here. So you can recognize it with the elephant here. This extension is going to let you basically prettify your WordPress PHP files, which is super helpful. So after you have installed the PHP IntelliFence extension, you also want to set it to be the default formatter for PHP files. So to do that, you want to open up your command palette. So Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P on Macs. Look up format and then select format document with, and then I already have this set, but if you didn't have this here, you can go to configure default formatter, and then it tells you to select a default formatter for PHP files, and then you want to select PHP IntelliFence. And then once you have that set, you also want to make sure it is formatting on save. So let's go into our preferences here. Settings, and then search for format, and then just make sure that you have format on save. And I think that should work for all cases. So now if you look at the header PHP file, it looks kind of messy. If I save, it automatically prettifies itself, so it's a lot easier to work with. So I think as I was saying, the header PHP file has a lot of the HTML head code, and then it has the opening body tag with a bunch of stuff here. And then it ends with the opening main tag. So then after that, it's going to load our page, homepage.php file. And then you can see here, this is where it actually loads the header PHP code and markup. And then it's going to load this stuff inside the main tag. And then at the bottom, it's going to say get footer. And what that does is it's going to load the footer PHP file. So if we look here, you can see now we have the closing main tag. Then we have some other code here, get sidebar. Then we have a footer tag, and then WP footer code. So this is kind of the order here in the tab. So header PHP, then page homepage.php, and then footer PHP. So in the header.php, let's try kind of cleaning up some stuff here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove, I think, everything inside the header tag. I think I don't want this container div. So this is just the opening tag. So we do need to make sure that we are removing the closing div. And this is the one outside of the main tag. So to delete the closing tag, we have to go to footer PHP, because here's the closing main tag. And then here's that closing div. I'm also going to remove get sidebar because we don't want that. And then we'll leave the footer tag, but let's delete everything in there. And we're going to replace that with our static HTML and CSS, which we have. I'll show you a little bit later. I do have the static HTML and CSS in a Git repo that is linked down below for starter code. And let's also, I think, remove this div. And then we just have the body and HTML tag. So let's save that. You just kind of double check here. So there's no extra divs here, I think. So let's go into our homepage PHP file. And I think I just want to, let's just keep this PHP, the title tag, or let's just keep the whole H1 tag just so we know it's the H1, but I'm actually going to delete all this stuff. So the article and the header tag. So remove the closing header tag, remove the closing article tag. I'm also going to remove the comments code because I don't really care about comments. And I think I can remove the entry links div as well. And then entry content, I don't think we need that either. So I think just want to keep this PHP tag for the content. So that's what's going to load whatever content you have in WordPress for that page. And we'll just remove that as well. Okay, so it's pretty bare bones here. Let's kind of make things formatted a little bit better. So this is where we're starting. So here is the header. Things are pretty much empty, homepage, and then the footer. So let's reload our website and make sure it's working and we don't get the white screen of death with WordPress. All right, so things are still working, which is great. All right, so we got our WordPress files all cleaned up and ready to go for the next step, which is going to be adding HTML and CSS to our WordPress templates. Now, we're going to be working from this static site that I actually pre-built already in HTML and CSS, and it's based off of a front-end mentor challenge for this personal blog site. And I have all the source code on my GitHub. It's linked down below. So let's just take a look at the homepage that we have so far here. And again, this is just the static site. So on the site, this is the blog homepage. We have a very simple header, and we have a sort of headline H1 tag here with a photo. Have a little blurb here with a paragraph, and then we have some social links underneath that. And then below that sort of intro section, we have a list of the 5 most recent articles, and the titles of these are going to link to the individual blog post. And then we also have a all articles page. So if we click on this, this is the articles page, and this is going to be all of the posts that exist, not just the most recent 5. And again, the titles will link to the individual blog posts. And if I click on one of those titles, again, we have the same header, but this is the blog post, and it has a photo, has a title, date, and then the post content. So that's our simple blog site. So let's start with the homepage, and I'm going to open up the static site files in VS Code as well, but this is using a different theme just so we can kind of distinguish them a little bit better. So the homepage is on the index.html file here. And what we're going to do is we're just literally going to start copying and pasting the markup from the HTML files to our PHP files. So let's start with the header. And this is something that we want to display on all pages and posts, no matter what. So I'm going to copy the header tag, and let's go back to the VS Code for the WordPress VS Code, and we're going to go into the header.php file, and we're going to replace this header tag with what we had in our static site. So now we added this new code here. Let's take a look at our local WordPress site, and if we reload, you can see it looks a little bit different. We don't have any styles yet, so this is just going to be that logo that you can see if I zoom in a little bit, and then that articles link. So at least we know that it is working. Now, if we take a look also at our static project in VS Code, we have this assets folder here, and I've used that to store the font files. So these are the fonts used on the website. And then we also have an images folder. And this folder has images that we use in the social media icons and, some hard-coded images. And I do want to use some of these images in the WordPress site, like, for example, the social media icons, they're not really going to change very often. So I try to rely on hard-coded content as much as I can, and only wiring things up to WordPress for things that I think are going to change more often, like blog post content and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this assets folder from the static site and paste it into our WordPress theme. So let's go to our file explorer here. So here is the Coder blog folder open here with the PHP files. And then here is the static site. So this is what we have open here on this other VS Code with our HTML files and such. So here's the assets folder. So I'm just going to copy that, go back to our WordPress theme. So this is the Coder blog folder in our themes folder. I'm going to paste in the assets. So now we'll be able to link to those social media icons from the static site. Okay, so I think the next thing we need to do is probably copy the CSS from our static site to our WordPress site. And we haven't seen where they are in the WordPress site yet. So here's our WordPress files. And in our Coder blog folder, we have, a bunch of PHP files from the blank slate theme. And if we scroll down, we have a style.css file here. And this is where the theme styles were getting pulled from. And again, these were the blank slate files originally. So these styles don't have anything to do with our site. So I'm just going to delete everything from the style.css file in Coder blog. And I'm going to go back to the static site, go to our style.css file here, copy that, and then paste it into the WordPress styles. So we'll save that. So if we take a look here at our styles, everything is just pure CSS here. And I do want to make sure that the fonts are loading correctly. So the fonts are coming from style.css, and right here it's saying it's going to, the URL starts with a /. So that's going to load the domain. However, in WordPress, anything in this folder is going to need to have WP content /themes/coder blog. And again, there is like a WordPress way to enqueue your style sheet, but I'm trying to avoid doing WordPress stuff as much as I can, just so we're not having to rely on the server as much, which will slow things down. So I'm actually going to hard code the path to WP content coder blog. I'm sorry, WP content themes, coder blog, and then assets, fonts, etc. And this is so we can just use the path here. So we're going to do the same thing here, just kind of updating all of the font paths. So I think that should be okay. Let's go to our blog website and check and make sure the fonts are loading. So the font family name is DM Sans. So let's go to our site. Now you can see things look different, which is great. And I just want to, let's dock to the left. I'm just going to check the fonts. So if we go in Firefox here, it actually tells you all the fonts. And it does say DM Sans, so I think all the fonts are loading correctly, which is great. All right, so we got the header HTML copied over to our WordPress site. So we're going to continue making our way down our index.html file and copying over the markup to our WordPress site. So inside the main tag is what we want on our homepage. So we have a bunch of different sections. I'm just going to fold them up to make selecting all of them easier. So we have two sections, so I guess not that many sections. And then we have the closing main tag, and then we have our footer. So let's copy the homepage markup here, go back to our WordPress project, and we're going to go to the page homepage PHP. So I'm actually just going to paste it after the WordPress stuff that we kept. This is going to be the static HTML markup. So there is quite a bit here. So let's kind of fold things up just so you can see everything. And then this is going to be the content from WordPress, which, you know, we will kind of integrate into this page in a little bit. And then we have the title tag. So let's see where this needs to go. We do need to kind of figure out where we want all the content to come from. So if we look at our static site, what I think I'm going to do is use advanced custom fields, ACF, and we're going to create a field for this title text, because I don't necessarily want to use the homepage here, because that, you know, we want this to say something kind of custom. And then I'll also create another ACF field for the image here. And then I think these paragraphs, this is, you know, kind of whatever content you want to be in the description. So this can come from that post WYSIWYG. So that will be loaded with the content function. That's a WordPress function. And then these social media links, I think I'm going to leave them as hard-coded just because you could manage them in WordPress. But I think if you're making this, let's say for yourself as a developer, your accounts aren't really going to change very often. So I think it's just easier to keep things hard-coded. And then we will need to use, you know, WordPress and ACF to load the post content, obviously. And we'll load the kind of dummy posts a little bit later on. But for now, let's kind of focus on this top section here. And let's go back to our WordPress. So I might just actually delete this here because I don't think we're going to use the title. And then we'll use the content here. So let's maybe close these two paragraphs here and then move the content down there. So let's save, get rid of some extra space here. And now let's go back to our website. And if we reload, now we have, you know, the hard-coded HTML kind of showing up here. So we have our hard-coded title, the H1 tag, we have the image. The image is not in WordPress, so it's not loading. And then we have the content that we put in our page in WordPress, and it's loading correctly. Then we have our social links here, and they are not working, so we'll have to come back and look at that. Make sure the images are linked correctly, because it seems like the paths are probably not right. Then we have the hard-coded articles. And then we actually need to add the footer as well, so let's just do that quickly. So here's a home page. We want to add the footer markup in the footer PHP file. So I'm going to go back to the static site and copy the footer tag. Go back here, and then we'll replace the footer there. And again, these are loading the social media icons. And I think that we need to add that WP content themes path again. So let's add that here. So I might actually be able to do this. Control-Shift-L to edit multiples. WP content themes coder blog. And that looks right. So we'll save that. And we probably need to do the same thing in the home page. So you can see here's the image. So let's do this here. So we'll just Control-Shift-L again. And this will update that hero image as well. So WP content, themes, coder blog. So now the images should load on our local site. So let's go back up, reload. Now the image is loading because it's hard-coded, and we will be updating that to come from WordPress, and our social media icons look pretty good. Alrighty, so for this next part, we are going to use ACF to load the title here and then this image here. So this is going to be a little more tricky, but I will show you all the different steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into WordPress and then create the fields for these two content pieces of content that we want to load in WordPress from ACF. So what's going to happen is we're going to create these fields in ACF down here, and then we're going to make them load on just this homepage template. So they'll load down here below the WYSIWYG. But the first thing we need to do to make that happen is to actually create the fields in ACF. So let's go to ACF down here, and we'll go to field groups. So the field groups is just a group of fields that you want to sort of control where they go all together. So you don't have to kind of designate that individually. So we're going to create a new field group for the homepage fields. So I'm going to call this homepage. Then below that, we can actually create the individual fields. And the cool thing about ACF is that it's just so cool. There's tons of different types of fields. So a lot of times it's just going to be text. If you have a short line of text, then you can have text area if you need more text. There's a whole lot of different things. Also using the image. Then you have, another WYSIWYG editor. So there's just like a lot of powerful features that you can use in just the free version of ACF, which I think is pretty cool. So the first field we're going to create is that the headline title, the H1 tag. And we just want this to be a text field, so we'll leave it as this default text field. And then for each field, you want to give it a name. This naming field label and then field name is a little bit confusing, but basically the field label is whatever you want to call it. You can have spaces in the title, you can have multiple words. And then the field name is kind of like in the database what this field will be called. And you can't have any spaces, but you can have underscores and dashes. And ACF will actually generate this for you when you create the field label the first time. So let's call this homepage title. Then we click off of it, you can notice that ACF generated homepage underscore title. So this is what we're going to use in our code to, connect this field with what we have in our PHP file. So we'll have to remember that. So homepage underscore title, default value, we'll just leave it blank. I think that's fine. Okay, so I guess while we're here, we can maybe add the image field as well. So this next field type, we'll scroll down until we see image. And let's call this homepage image. So the field name for this is going to be homepage underscore image. And I usually just like leaving the return format as image array. And you have these different options. So image ID is just like the ID of the image, and you can kind of pull the WordPress data from that yourself. Image URL is kind of the same thing, but just the URL if that's the only thing you need. Image array is going to basically give you different options in terms of the values from WordPress that you can get when you upload an image to the media library. So this kind of gives you the most different things you can access from this field. So I usually use image array. And, I'm just going to select all, so it doesn't matter where you upload it. And I think that's about it. So we have our homepage image field, and then we have our homepage title field. So let's save our changes to the homepage group. And now we can see we have homepage title and homepage image. Then the next thing we need to do is control where these fields show up. So under here, these are the location rules. So show this field group if, and we're working with pages for this homepage. So I'm going to select if page template, I think, or no, I think if page, yeah, I don't think it was template. Yeah, no, that's something different. So we just created that page to be their custom homepage. And you can see it kind of automatically selects that because we don't really have any other pages. So this means that these fields will only show up on that homepage page in WordPress. So let's save our changes. And now let's make sure that these fields are showing up on our page. So here's a homepage, going to edit, and then here's our WYSIWYG. And then now beneath that, we have the homepage field group. So you can see both fields are displayed in this kind of panel under the WYSIWYG. So homepage title and then homepage image. So let's copy the text from our hard-coded stuff. Hi, I'm Coder. And we do need to add the image. So I think I will try to upload it from my files. So here's our assets folder. And this is just the image that I just kind of added. And obviously, you probably want to use a different image. Let's upload this to our WordPress media library. And if you can see this, we need to add some alt text here. So we'll just say coder cat. Okay. So now we have the content for homepage title and homepage image. So we want to update to save changes. And I guess we actually also want to update this from, the original content we had. So this is the static site. So I'm just going to copy these paragraphs just to make sure it kind of matches what we had. So there we go. And again, we'll save our changes. So now the homepage content should all be in. We have the content, got our homepage title and homepage image. So I think we are good on the WordPress side for this page. All right, so we have our content in WordPress now. The next thing we need to do is update our PHP code to actually load the content from WordPress into this template. So the first one we're going to tackle is the H1 tag with the homepage title field. So, where do we get the code for that? Well, fortunately, ACF has really good documentation. So if you go to the ACF website, we're going to go to the documentation here, and we can get code examples for every field type. So let's go to the field types, and then we want to look for the text field, which is what we made the homepage. So let's go there. And again, it's really helpful. It kind of gives you a description of the field, what it looks like in WordPress when you're loading it. And if we keep scrolling, here we go. This is the template usage. So this is going to be the example code. So what we are looking for is the one that we can add into our PHP file like this. So I'm just going to copy that PHP tag. And let's go back to VS Code. And we're going to replace our H1 tag with that PHP code. And we also want to make sure that we update the field to be the correct field name. So homepage _ title. So let's save that and let's reload our blog. So it does say hi, I'm Coder, which is the same as before, but we need to kind of double check and make sure this is actually pulling from WordPress by going back to the homepage, and we'll just change this content. So I'm just going to add a whole bunch of exclamation points and update. So now let's reload. You can see that the content change did happen. So that kind of confirms that the homepage title is loading correctly from WordPress. So we can do the same thing with this image. So let's go back to ACF and we'll go back to the field types, and we want to look for image. So again, this kind of just gives you info. If we keep going. So images are a little more complicated. So if you remember, there were 3 different options. You could use the ID, the URL, and then the image array. And we chose image array. So here, display image array. And then this is just going to sort of load stuff with kind of default settings, I think. And then if you want more detail, you can use this customized display one. So I think we can use this, and then I think I might want to add some more fields, because this example only has alt text. It doesn't have the width and height, which is kind of important to avoid content shifts in your website. So I'm just going to copy this, go to our PHP file, and here's a hard-coded image. So just to kind of keep it there as reference for now, We'll paste the PHP code under it. Update the field name, so homepage underscore image. That seems good. And I might actually try to put this on multiple lines just to make it a little bit easier. I also want to add width and then height. Oops. And then we should be able to get those attributes. Let's check out the customized display one. So here we go. So width is going to be, I think we might just be able to, let's see, PHP escape attribute image and then alt. And I think we can just replace this with width and height. So let's do that. Okay. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to comment out the original image. Oops. There we go. Okay, so we've commented out the hard-coded image. So now the only image code is the PHP code. So we've saved our changes. Let's go back to our local site. I'm going to reload. Okay, so looks like it is working. It is really big, and I think we had some styles to, oh yeah, I forgot to add the class profile. There we go. So now in our image tag here, it's loading the hard-coded CSS class, and then it's loading the image URL for the source. It's loading the alt text, and then the width and height. So I'm gonna reload that. And I'm going to inspect this just to make sure things are loading, all the attributes. It looks like it is. So here's the alt text, coder cat, width of 1600, height of 1716. So that's looking pretty good. And then we have this coming from the paragraphs that we added in the WYSIWYG. All right, so the next section that we need to work on is this latest articles section. And this is going to be a little bit more complicated. The first step I do need to do is to actually create posts in WordPress. So I'm just going to create some posts that kind of have like, you know, placeholder content or whatever. So I'll show you the first post and then I'll probably just kind of fast forward through the rest or jump ahead. But in WordPress, we're going to create a new post. So posts, add post. And then let's copy the title from here. And then I have some placeholder content here that we got from Front End Mentor. But again, it's just placeholder. So I'm going to copy, paste it in there. So we have our content. And another thing that you probably want to do is set the featured image. And again, I'm going to upload some files here for the posts. So we got some images here. I'm just going to copy maybe these 3 here. We'll add them to some of the posts. So alt text cat on green. I forgot to turn my webcam on again. So cat on green background. So here's our post. We have the featured image, which is a pretty frequent thing you need to add for blogs. And we have our blog content. And we are not going to need any custom fields for the posts, I believe. We have one post saved. Let's just create a new post. And we'll copy the title. And I'll just add in the same placeholder content. So we'll just do this for all the rest of the posts. So I'm going to try to fast forward here. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 posts, which is good. Oh yeah, I'm going to delete the hello world one because we don't really need that. So now we need to add the WordPress PHP code into our homepage template to load the posts. So let's go back to VS Code, and here we have our homepage PHP file. And oh, I'm going to delete this image because we don't really need that anymore. Here's the social icons, and here is the articles, and this is where we have the list of posts. So in the markup, in this div called articles links is where we have each individual WordPress post inside an article tag. So you can see, I'll add a space so you can kind of see better. Each article tag has the link. It has a title with the title here, and then it has a date of when it was published. So we don't need all of the tags because they're really just the same thing. So I'm going to leave this first one and let's delete the rest of them. There we go. So now we're saving this and we're going to integrate it into the WordPress code. So we can get some code examples from, again, the ACF docs site. So we go to documentations. What's it in here? Okay. Actually, this looks pretty good. All right, so in this code here, we have our PHP tag, and then we are loading all the posts here, and you can add different filters here. The post per page thing is when you're kind of loading an archive. So what we need is 5 posts. And then in here we have, if there are posts that meet these criteria here, they'll get loaded into like an object. And then in this for loop for each post, it's going to set up post data. That's going to kind of make the post data in WordPress accessible inside our loop. And then inside here, we can sort of write whatever markup we need and then reset post data at the end of it. So I think this should work. So let's copy this. Go back to VS Code. So I'm going to leave this as a reference here. So let's paste it underneath. I'm going to save it. Let's get rid of the markup we don't need. So we don't need the UL tag. Try to get rid of some of the extra spaces. So delete the LI tag. UL. Okay. So here is our loop. So we'll change this to 5 because we want 5. Okay. So right now, the only markup it's going to generate is the anchor link with the link and then the title. Maybe we'll just add a div just so they, div. So here, so I'm just gonna let's just comment this out for now. Okay, so this is what we're hoping will generate the 5 posts. So let's go to our website. So this is the hard-coded stuff. I'm gonna reload, and it's gonna load from our PHP file. Hey, and it looks like it works. And each of these is loading. And we'll get to the individual posts later. After this, they definitely need some work. But this looks pretty good. So now that we know that our code works, our backend code from WordPress, we can integrate our markup with it. I'm going to uncomment this. Now let us paste in our hard-coded HTML. And we're going to replace, the hard-coded stuff with dynamic code. So the first one we want to update is the permalink. So we'll move that up into the href. And then this is supposed to be the title here in this div. So we'll just move the title code up there. And then the date. And I'm trying to remember what the name of the WordPress function for that is, but you can kind of use autocomplete here. So I think it might be the date. Here we go. So this is kind of helpful having this autocomplete. So here's our code now. I'm just going to remove some of the extra spaces. So let's check out our site. So the markup actually looks pretty good. And actually the date is loading correctly. So that's good. Why is the date not loading for the other posts? That's not good. I wonder if it's because they're the same date, because I just made them all right now. I'm going to change the date just to see if that helps with anything. Let's reload. I don't know if that's going to change anything. Oh, it did. That's weird. Okay, so yeah, our posts are looking actually pretty good. All right, so the next thing we need to do is make the view all articles page. And on the static site, let me show you what that looks like. So, again, it's pretty simple and bare bones. We have the same header, and then we have the title here. We have a little paragraph, and we have, again, the list of posts, except this time there's also a little extra blurb here. So this page is going to list all the posts, and then we have our footer there. So kind of like we did in our homepage, let us go to WordPress, and we're going to create a custom page for this, and we're going to call this articles. And doing this will kind of dynamically generate the slug to be articles, which is what we want. Once that's saved, we can change the title again, and we're just going to call it my articles, and this won't affect the slug. You can always edit the slug after the fact if you want as well. So let's copy the paragraph from there. And we're going to publish this. Okay, so let's go back into VS Code. And again, we're following the same steps that we did for our custom homepage. So what I'm going to do is take the homepage PHP file, copy, make sure to paste it in the same folder, and we'll rename the copy to, instead of page-homepage, it's going to be page-articles, because that's the slug on the new page. Okay, so we want to get rid of the stuff we don't need. So I think we don't need the intro, I think. And we'll probably use this loop stuff, but I think we might just remove kind of the markup around it. And, oh yeah, we need to modify that link there on the homepage. So remove that. So now we have basically nothing, and we want to copy the correct markup from our static site. The blog HTML. So we have our articles here, and then we have the list of the blog posts there. So let's start copying. I'll copy here, maybe to the H1 tag. And we do need to just make sure we are careful and have all the closing tags that we need. So that's the H1 tag, and then we have the loop for the links here. So let's copy that div that has a class of articles links. And this is going to be inside here. So if there's posts, we'll do this, articles links, and then inside there will be each article. And we need to make sure we have our closing div before the end if here. There we go. So I think this is one reason some people don't like the fact that you kind of are mixing HTML and PHP. But I think it's okay if you can kind of keep things organized. So let's go back here. We also want to make sure the article itself has the right markup. So article class has divider small. Let's see if we have that. Nope. So let's replace that to has the right class. And then article link, article title, and then, oh yeah, article blurb. That's different. I'm going to copy that opening paragraph tag. So let's just make sure we have article link and article title. Article link, article title. That's good. Oh, and then the date. So maybe this will go here. And then we'll add the excerpt there. And then where's the date? Small article date. There we go. Okay. I think that's actually pretty good. So let's add the PHP tag for the excerpt. There we go. Okay, so I think our code here is good. And here, I think we don't need the number of posts. I think actually there's a better way of doing the, because we're not really paging it. So let's see if, we're not doing pages. We really just want to retrieve 5 posts. Let's just look quickly for, let's see. And yeah, I do say I'm not I would not call myself a WordPress expert. I have worked on WordPress sites before. But okay, I think this is what we're looking for. Number of posts is the number we want because we're not paging. Let's replace that. Okay, so I think this should still work. Let's reload our homepage and just make sure nothing's broken. Okay, so still retrieve the 5 posts. So let's go back here. And on the home page, oh yeah, let's change this link to articles. Okay, so now let's go to the article pages. So we want to replace this with the title. Okay, I think our markup seems okay. We just need to, let's see, we have a closing div, then we need another closing div and then a closing section tag. And that is going to be inside the while. Oops. There we go. Okay. So let's test out our articles PHP. Oh, I want the permalink to be just articles. Okay, now let's update. And let's view the page. Cool. Looks pretty good. And then the title here should go to, yeah, the post, which we will be working on soon. But this looks good. And then this will go back to the home page. And then view all articles goes to the articles page. Sweet. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is work on the blog post itself. So in WordPress, the blog posts by default are going to load from single.php, and we'll just adjust this for each of the blog posts. So I think this code is pretty much the same as the others. So we'll just kind of do the same thing. Yeah, you can see. So let's remove the comments and stuff. And then I think that's all we need there. Let's just double check. Yeah. So now in here, we'll add the blog post markup from our static site once again. So that's going to be in the blog detail HTML. So inside the main tag, so most of this is just going to be the content from the WYSIWYG. So let's see what we got here. So we have the section tag, article wrapper, wrapper content, and then this is going to be the featured image. So we will have to add some code for that. And then we have blog content div. So let's copy the section tag and the div and the image tag first. Then we'll do div section tag. And then blog content. So this div here is going to contain, actually we'll need some h1 tag and then this div here too. So after the image, and then we'll add our closing div. So here's the hard-coded blog content, and then we're going to load the content from WordPress. And let's also copy the date. And the title. Oops, what did I do? Okay. Cool. So that's the main blog content. Now we do need to get the featured image. So let's again look WordPress featured image. Oops. Okay, I think it's the post thumbnail. Okay, and then we can use this to add the class. Okay. So I'm going to leave the hard-coded image. Oops, we need to add this inside a PHP tag. And then the class is going to be blog featured image. And then I don't think I need the title. Let's just delete that. Okay, so let's comment this out and let's try reloading our blog post here. Cool. So here's the featured image. Let me just make sure it has all the attributes. Yeah, it does, which is great. And it has alt text, which is great. So got the featured image, title, date, and then we have the content from the WYSIWYG. All right. So let's remove that hard-coded image. And I think we're good on the blog post, and I think that's the last part we needed for our site. So now we have our home page. Oh yeah, we need to update the articles link in the header. So let's go to the header. Articles. So let's reload. So now we can go to the articles page. And this seems pretty good. Wait, this is loading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we had 8 posts, so I think we didn't update the loop correctly. Oh, post per page is -1. Okay, good to know. All right. There we go. Now we got all the posts here. Oops, and then if we go to the home page, we have 5. All right, so that took a little bit, but I think we are good in terms of the local site. All right, so we finished building our local WordPress site. Now let's deploy it to our production site on SiteGround. So here we are on the SiteGround Site Tools dashboard, and I wanted to point out a few features that can really help when you need to manage a WordPress website. So one feature that comes automatic with SiteGround is, if we go to speed, a CDN or content delivery network. And this is really going to help your website load as quickly as possible. And it's actually really nice that they include it here so that you don't have to set up something like Cloudflare CDN, which can be a little bit of a pain. So you can activate the free version if we click on that button. And this is going to make sure that your website loads quickly no matter where your visitor is located around the world. And another feature that comes in handy is the website caching that we have. And this basically stores a snapshot of what your website files look like so that it doesn't have to load manually from the server every time somebody visits. Let me just move up here. Now, when you are working with caching, sometimes you might notice that changes that you've made in your code files are not getting reflected on the actual live site. So if this does happen, the most common fix is to clear your cache so that it will then load the most recent files. So you can do this if you go to the speed caching, and then in the caching levels panel here, you want to go to dynamic cache. And then if you click this broom icon over here, you can flush your cache. Now, another really important thing that you need with WordPress or any website is protecting your website from spam, bots, malware, and hacking attempts, which I'm sure you've heard is a risk for WordPress websites. So to help with this, SiteGround has their own custom plugin, Security Optimizer, which you can access for free, and it is going to come pre-installed anytime you create a WordPress website on SiteGround. So this is going to protect your website on the application level from the most common hacks, like protecting the WP admin panel and also using a custom login URL. It'll also monitor activity like login attempts and bot visits so that you know what's happening on your website. And if the worst does happen and your website gets compromised, you can quickly take these post-hack actions, for example, forcing password resets and logging out all users in order to prevent any further damages. And the other part of this is making sure that you have frequent backups of your website in case anything ever goes wrong and you see that blank white screen instead of your WordPress site. Now, there are WordPress plugins that handle backups, but it can be a little bit of a pain to configure them and also where your backups get stored. Now, with SiteGround, they're going to take a backup of your site automatically every 24 hours. So if something happens like a plugin breaks or you get hacked, you can quickly revert back to a previous version of your website with just one click. Your backups are going to be stored in different geo-distributed locations from your actual website server as an additional layer of protection in case of natural disasters or other catastrophes. And even better, these backups are not going to be counted against your overall storage capacity, which is something that not all web hosts do. And lastly, if you ever need to make a quick code change right away, you can actually do that directly from SiteGround's file manager, which has a built-in IDE, which can come in really handy for cases like these. Okay, so actually, before we deploy to production, I did want to show you one more area of things that we want to add to our site, and that would be meta tags in the head of our HTML. And this is for basically SEO purposes, for search results pages, as well as social media sharing. So in VS Code, I have the header PHP file open, and we want to add some meta tags. So one of them is meta description. And this is supposed to be a description of your website or the specific page that you're on. So my developer blog. So we're gonna just hard code some stuff here first, and then we're going to integrate some of the tags that need it into WordPress again. So the other one is author. I don't think, we'll just do this again. Meta name is supposed to be author, and then you can put your author name here. So these are important for search results pages. All right, we saved our changes, we reloaded our site, it seems okay. Let's inspect our code to see if we have all the information loading correctly that we have so far. So up here, you can see, hopefully you can see there. There's a lot of stuff coming from WordPress. Okay, so here we have our meta description, which we left blank. Here's the author, Twitter card. Things seem to be loading correctly in terms of the title, which is good. Okay, so I think this looks good so far. Okay, so now we need to figure out the description and then the image. Those are the two main things that are probably going to change depending on, different blog posts and things like that. So I think I'm going to add those fields to advanced custom fields so that on every page or post in WordPress, you can add whatever custom description and image that you want. So here in WordPress, let's go to ACF, and we're going to create a new field group. I'm going to say SEO. Okay, so the first one we wanted to be for the description. So I'm going to call this meta description. That seems good. And then the next one is the image. And I think we can set it so that we will load the featured image if there's nothing set in this image field, or we can customize the image here. So meta image. And again, we'll use image array. Okay, so just the description and the image seem to be the main two. And we'll say post type equal to post, or post type equal to page. So we basically want to add this on everything. So we'll save that. So now let's maybe edit one of our posts just to add some of the meta information. So we can see that we have the description and the image here. So I'm just going to write, here is a test meta description. And then I guess we can add an image. Try that. Okay. And then this will be if we don't want to use the featured image as our share image. So let's update that. Okay. So now we can see our meta fields here. And, you know, obviously you can add more meta fields to ACF if you want to. Okay, so we want to load the description field. And let's get the code for that. So here's the one that was loading the homepage title. Oops. So I'm going to copy that, go back to header, and then in the description here, we'll say, instead of homepage title, it's going to be meta description. Let's kind of copy and paste this to all of our description fields. Okay, so now I'm going to reload. So here's the blog post that we actually added the info to. So let's go to the head tag, search for description. Here we go. So it is working. Hooray. Okay, so the description looks good. Next up, we want to add the image if the featured image is not there. So let's go to our single. So let's add just the post thumbnail to start off with. Actually, I wonder if we can just kind of lump all these images together so that we can kind of put them in the same code block. Okay, so Twitter image and OG images are here. So I might actually do something like this to get the thumbnail. Create a new variable. I think actually I want to get the URL of the image. So search for the post thumbnail. Let's see. Oh, post thumbnail URL. That's helpful. Let's try that. So now, let's see if this works. So let's go back to our site, and here's our blog post. And where's the image? Let's search for OG image. It didn't work. Wait, this worked. The URL is there. Okay, maybe we're just gonna do this. It'll be kind of messy. Copy it, paste it. There we go. Let's try again. Okay, so now it is loading, which is awesome. Okay, so the other case is if we have that image field, and we use an image field in here, homepage image. So let's copy this. And this is kind of why I wanted to link, kind of group the images together. So we're going to paste that code that we already used. And think it was meta image. I'm just going to rename the variable to meta image just in case. And we do want to get the URL, so we'll delete the other attributes, or we'll just delete everything else actually. Let's paste that. So if the image is not empty, we will load the tags with the image. Else, so if we don't have that field, we'll add it here. So now we will replace this with getting the meta image. All right, so hopefully this will work. Let's try it out. And I can't remember which image was this. It was a green cat. So let's see if this is actually the right image. Oh, it is. It's the green cat for both. And then let's test the other case if we don't have this. So we'll remove that image, update it, reload. And I think it is a different image. Let's just try. Yep. Okay, nice. So I know this kind of looks messy. I'm definitely not a PHP or a WordPress expert really, but it does seem to be working, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so these are all the SEO tags that you would want, you know, for social media and search results. So I think we're good there. All right, so let's get back to migrating from local to production. Alrighty, so to migrate from our local to our production WordPress websites, we're going to be using a free plugin called WP Vivid, and we are going to need to install them on both local and production environments. So right now I'm on my production WordPress site on SiteGround, so let's go install the plugin on here first. So add plugin, type in WP Vivid, WP Vivid, and it's this one here, and we'll install. And once it's finished installing, we will activate it. Okay. So in WP Vivid, the way it works is you can link your local WordPress to your production WordPress using a key. So in the options here, we want to go to this tab here on the right that says key, and we want to generate a new key. And you can see here that by default, it's going to expire in 8 hours. You can change that if you want. So I'm going to hit generate here. So here is the key. So we want to take this key and we're going to copy it from production and paste it in local. So now let's go to our local site and install the same plugin there. So here's a local coder blog. We'll go to plugins again, add plugin, WP Vivid. We'll install it here. And then activate it. So in our local, we want to go to auto migration because that's the name of the process to migrate from local to production. So again, we're on the local, so we need to get the key from production and paste it here. So let's go back to our production WordPress site here, copy our key, and then here's our local WP Vivid. So I'm going to paste the key and then save. Okay, so now we want to choose a content we want to transfer. I'm going to do everything basically, so database and files, but then you can also choose other options if you want. we're going to do clone then transfer. And there is a message here saying, please migrate manually when using local by Flywheel, which is that local tool we used, but I've tried it and it actually does work. So I think it's okay. All right, so we're going to click clone then transfer. And this might take a little bit of time. You can see if you scroll up the progress bar here. Okay, so looks like the transfer did work. And it says we can go to the log page to check the details. So here we have this backup. So next thing we want to do is go back to our production WordPress up here. And we want to go to backup and restore. And the backup should show up here. If it doesn't, you might actually need to just reload the page. So let's try reloading. And when we scroll down, so now we have received a backup. Okay, so if we click, I think here to restore, we can click this restore button. It's going to basically copy everything from our local WordPress to our production WordPress. And this is going to overwrite everything. So the most important thing it's going to overwrite is actually your WordPress login. So next time we log into the production site after the transfer, we're going to have to use our local WordPress login. So that's something important to keep in mind after we restore. So let's try restoring. Okay. So now we are prompted to re-log into WordPress, and this is where we need to use our local WordPress login. So if on your local site you made a very insecure, password or something, just make sure that you, after you log in this first time, you change it right away. Otherwise, this could put you at higher risk of getting hacked. So we'll log in with our local login credentials, and now it looks like we are good. So let's check out our WordPress content. So in pages, we have our home page, and this looks like everything we had from local, which is great. If we go to our posts, we have all our posts here from local. So now let's check out our site. And it looks like we have the actual site. Nice. Let's check the view all articles page as well. Okay. So I think that we are pretty much done with our production site. And I do really like that WP Vivid plugin. It just makes the migration a lot easier. I did want to show you all how fast this WordPress site can be. So I am on the production site in Chrome, and we're going to run a Lighthouse report. So this is the Google page speed test, basically. So right now we're on mobile, and we're going to click to analyze the page load. All right, so we are all hundreds across the board, which is pretty awesome. Let's do the same thing on desktop. Should be the same. So there we go. All right, so that's the video for how to build a fast WordPress blog. I really hope that you found this helpful. I do have all the resources and everything that I mentioned linked down below in the description. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you found this helpful, and also if you'd want to see any WordPress content in the future. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.